Hello, my name's Paul, and for a while now I've been considering making a rotary axis for my CNC machine, a fourth axis. From just a few simple components that I had lying around, I managed to make this. I just carved a lizard into a round piece of softwood using Carveco software. Let's have a look and see how I did this. So this is my CNC machine. It's a 60/40 machine, and on it I've set up my rotary axis with a spare stepper motor and a little 3-jaw chuck, and I've added a support bearing on a block of wood and a sliding tailstock. Now I've attached my stepper motor onto my spoil board, and I've just stuck a 50 diameter paper disc onto the front of the spindle. Try to get it exactly in the centre and draw a line from the centre to the outside. This will be a visual indicator of how the rotor turns, so we'll have a look at that in a moment by using UGS. And of course I should just mention, before you alter any of the gerbil settings, make sure you save a copy of your settings, so that when you finish with the fourth axis and you want to put the CNC back to normal use, you'll have the gerbil settings already saved. So we need to set up the new y-axis substitute, which is our fourth axis, and normally when setting up the resolution for this, the travelled resolution, you would do this in a straight line on the y-axis, but this time we need to find out how far the paper disc circumference travels in one revolution. So just pause for a moment and we'll just come back slightly. So we just stuck the little paper disc onto the front of the spindle, and we know that it's a 50 diameter paper circle. The circumference will be 50 millimeters times pi, which works out at 157.08 millimeters. Now we enter this into our computer and UGS, and we enter it in the jog controller in the step size just there. If I now get the y-axis to rotate one revolution, we'll see what happens. So it should go around exactly one turn, which will be, in distance millimeters, the exact circumference of our paper disc. If the line doesn't appear back at the starting point, you'll need to adjust the $101 on your gerbil settings. Mine is set at 40.710, and that's the y-axis travel resolution. You would enter this in the command line and then change it. Start with a higher number to start with, say 100, and you'll notice that the revolution goes round a lot too fast, or should I say too much, and then you can come back to it and alter the settings. But this is what you need to achieve at the end, is this one revolution, and we know that it's 157.08 around the circumference. Okay, at this point it's also a good idea to check the Y acceleration, which I believe is $121. Make sure that the acceleration isn't too fast for your stepper motor. In order for us to carve our relief model, we need to have a round piece of wood. If yours isn't perfectly round, mine was a square piece of wood which I took the corners off with a milling tool. The way that I did this was to create a surfacing little program just to take off 1mm of the surface of the wood. So in Carveco Maker I've created a model space the same size as my piece of wood. The width of the wood that I'm going to be carving is 140mm, and the height is the circumference of the wood, so it will wrap around the wood this way, and that is the sort of length of the wood from the chuck to the tailstock. So we say OK. Now create a vector outline around it with the create triangle tool. Click in the top right hand corner and drag it down to the bottom right hand corner, and now say create. Close out the tool settings, go to tool paths, and we're going to use the area clearance toolpath. So we click on that, and the vector association is the selected vectors. The start depth will be 0, which will be the highest point on your piece of wood, and the finish depth I'm just going to take off 1mm, and you can do this a couple of times if you wish, just so as you get your piece of wood round. Now we need to add a tool to do this, and I'm going to be using a 3mm end mill. So the settings seem OK, so we select that, and we just have a scroll down a little bit. Now just check the settings and the feed rate. Just be careful with the feed rate, you don't need it to be going too fast. 30mm a second, I should maybe drop that down to 20. And use the raster clearance, which means that the tool will be going from side to side, left to right and right to left. And we'll come down, make sure that your machine safe and home position is above the material. And for the material thickness, we need to just sort of tell Carveco that it's thicker than 1mm. It doesn't really matter what we put in here as long as it's more than sort of 1mm. So I'll go for 10mm, and as we can see in this bottom section, it's 1mm. We say OK, and then we calculate and give it a name, area clear. Now this shows where the tool will run. These are your tool paths. So we could have a quick look at that by going to the tool itself and right clicking and select the simulation control bar. Now we can see that the tool moves from left to right across the work until it reaches all the way around the work this time. And there we are. So now we can close out this little box, right click and delete the simulation, and we can now save this. So now that I've got my piece of wood perfectly round, we could move on to Carveco, and I'm going to create a relief carving, which will carve into the wood, but go all the way around the circumference as well. And the reason I've had to sort of turn the wood round to start with is that I don't have access to a machine shop or a wood turning lathe, so this is the first part of creating a fourth axis carving. So let's have a look at Carveco. Now we have Carveco Maker open. It's time to create a little sort of relief carving that I'm going to put round the circumference of my piece of wood. So first of all, the model size, if we just check what it is, the width is self-explanatory. That is this way along the length of your piece of wood, but the height is the circumference around the piece of wood, and in my case it's going to be 158 millimeters for a 50 millimeter diameter block of wood. Next, you just need to go to the clip art library, and I selected the lizard engraved, and you just drag this across onto your workspace, resize it so as it fits nicely within the space that you've got, and then create your tool paths accordingly. I just use the V-bit for carving. A small V-bit, I used a 9.63 millimeter 90 degree V-bit, and an end mill for the roughing out. Okay, so let's go back to the machine. And I did say earlier that I'd created a roughing tool path, but for this particular lizard carving you don't really need it. The V-bit will take out the excess wood all by itself, and I also painted the wood black just to give it a little bit of an effect. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video and you've learnt something new. So thanks for watching. Bye.